So the next sutta is also about the profundity of arahantship, yeah, how you're not touched by the world, and how you kind of are beyond the world. This is quite a well-known sutta called the Dart Sutta. And we're now getting into the really profound parts of the Dhamma. Already it's getting very profound, but we have seen many of the ordinary aspects already, so it's nice to do some profound things towards the very end. And this gives an idea of arahantship from a slightly different angle. The idea of the two darts, yeah, the two arrows, or whatever you want to call it. So this is Connected Discourses, Samyutta Nikaya 36. 36 is the Vedana Samyutta, Connected Discourses on Feelings. Sutta number 6, the dart, the arrow, or whatever. So let's see what we have here. Oh, this is Bhikkhu Bodhi translation. I'm not sure why I have that one, not Bhante Sujato. Maybe Bhante Sujato will complain to me now. I'm using Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, not sure. Let's see what they have. Actually, they're very similar. They're not that different. There's a little bit difference in language, but bhikkhus, yeah, you know straight away, bhikkhus is Bhikkhu Bodhi. If it was mendicants, then you know it's Bhante Sujato. The uninstructed worldling feels a pleasant feeling, a painful feeling, and a neither painful nor pleasant feeling. The instructed noble disciple too feels a pleasant feeling, a painful feeling, and an what? What does this mean? Whatever, I don't know what it means, so just leave it out. The uninstructed feels a neither painful nor pleasant feeling. Therein, bhikkhus, therein, that's Bhikkhu Bodhi, only he uses words like that. Therein, because what is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the instructed noble disciple and the uninstructed worldling? Yeah, so we all feel these three kinds of feelings. Yeah, we all have either things are pleasant, or they are unpleasant, or they are somewhere in between, neither painful nor pleasant. Yeah, everything in our experience is like that. It has these three kind of qualities to them. They are not feelings in the ordinary sense of the word, like emotions, but they are feelings in the sense of the tone of experience. Things are good, they are bad, or they are neutral. Pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. However, the way we react to feelings is very different, depending on whether you are an ordinary person or a Aryan. Yeah? So let's see what the Aryans do compared to the ordinary people. Venerable Sir, our teachings are rooted in the Blessed One, guided by the Blessed One. Take recourse in the Blessed One. It would be good if the Blessed One would clear up the meaning of this statement. Having heard it from him, the bhikkhus will remember it. Well then, listen and attend closely, bhikkhus. I will speak. Yes, Venerable Sir, the bhikkhus replied, and the Blessed One said this. It's always like this. This is kind of this. We saw this before. And notice the Buddha says, well, listen and attend closely. Yeah, kind of this is important. Yeah, listen. Now there will be some important Dhamma content, so be ready. So what does the big Buddha say about this distinction between the ordinary person and the noble one? Because when the uninstructed worldling is being contacted by a painful feeling, he sorrow, grieves, and laments. He weeps, beating his breast, and becomes distraught. Yeah, is that true? Is that what you do? Depends on the kind of painful feeling, right? Some painful feelings are kind of small, they are kind of not so significant. Other painful feelings are really problematic. Someone in your family dies or gets sick or whatever, then you can start weeping and beating your breast. Yeah, rolling back and forth on the ground. This is very interesting how this is, you see this in the suttas, yeah, when people were grieving at the time of the Buddha, they were really grieving, they really knew how to grieve, yeah. There was no holding back in the grieving. Yeah. They would lie on the ground and roll back and forth, holding their tummy. Too soon the Buddha has passed away, and saying these kind of things. So they were really going for it when they were grieving. Yeah. And but of course, there's small painful feelings as well. So there's a whole panoply of feelings, from the most minor to the most severe. And this is what happens when we feel these feelings. So the uninstructed worldling feels two feelings, a bodily one and a mental one. Yeah, so when you, let's say someone comes and they strike you with an arrow or something like that. That's kind of one of the similes in the suttas. Or someone kind of hurts you physically in one way. That physical hurt is the pain in the body. And then afterwards maybe you feel the mental pain because you are upset about that, or angry, or your mind takes that bodily feeling as its object, and you feel that pain in the mind after feeling it in the body. You take it with you, you carry it with you. And so this is the problem for the worldling, the ordinary person, is that we don't just feel the bodily feeling. That's maybe what you think you're doing, you're just feeling the bodily feeling, but the craving to overcome that negative feeling, that's what we have. We have that craving to overcome that bodily negative feeling, actually adds an additional mental feeling to the problem. And that turns out to be the real issue. That is the real problem. That very craving is what causes by far the most of the negativity in terms of these negative feelings. And so you have two arrows. You're struck by the bodily feeling and then by the mental feeling. Or sometimes you are struck by a mental feeling, you grieve, and then you grieve because of the grief, You crave to get rid of that grief. And so it's like a mental feeling struck by another mental feeling afterwards, the craving to get rid of it, to move in a different way. Suppose they were to strike a man with a dart, and then they would strike him immediately afterwards with a second dart, so that the man would feel a feeling caused by two darts. You notice immediately afterwards, straight away the mind takes up that object and creates a problem out of it. And this is the idea of the two darts. So wouldn't it be nice to get rid of the mental problem? You just have the physical one. The physical one turns out to be very small. The mental one is the big issue. So too, when the uninstructed worldling is being contacted by a painful feeling, he feels two feelings, a bodily one and a mental one. Being contacted by that same painful feeling, he harbors aversion towards it. This is the problem. That aversion is a negative feeling here. When he harbors aversion towards painful feeling, the underlying tendency to aversion towards painful feeling lies behind this. So you have an underlying tendency towards this sort of aversion. So whenever the painful feeling arises, that underlying tendency manifests itself and then causes that aversion to arise. So our job is to end that underlying tendency so that when the painful feeling comes, you just accept it. Isn't that kind of interesting? You don't really have any aversion towards it. You know that this is the nature of the body, and so you just accept that painful feeling. All you have is a negative bodily feeling, and the rest kind of stops. But this is not how it is with most of us. Most people, if you're not an Aryan, especially an Arahant, then that doesn't work. The underlying tendency manifests, and then you have aversion. Being contacted by a painful feeling, he seeks delight in sensual pleasures. This is kind of what the world is like. If you have some pain or some problem, you seek often delight in sensual pleasures. You are depressed and sad, you go to the fridge, you open the fridge, feeling sad, what can I eat? Isn't that true? Or we go to seek some entertainment, or we go to some kind of distraction, hanging out with our mates, our friends, or whatever. The only escape we know from painful feeling is sensual pleasures. For what reason? Because the uninstructed worldling does not know any escape from painful feeling other than sensual pleasures. That's where we seek our escape. And that's where we go wrong. So if you can recognize that, it means that, that you are doing what everyone else does. This is kind of what we do. And you can see how this becomes a problem, because sensual pleasures are uncertain, unreliable in their own right, and so you're just building problem upon problem when you do this. When he seeks delight in sensual pleasures, the underlying tendency to desire for pleasant feeling lies behind that. You have there is an underlying tendency that the moment you seek delight, it manifests as a desire for these things. It comes out. It is kind of waiting behind the scenes, waiting to manifest when your mind moves in a certain direction. He does not understand as it really is the origin and passing away, the gratification, the danger, and the escape of these feelings. He doesn't understand that those sensual pleasures are actually very unreliable. You are seeking refuge in the sensual pleasures, refuge from the painful feeling. Go to sensual pleasures. They themselves are problematic. They originate through cause and conditions. They are not reliable. You don't know what's going to happen. Next is so uncertain. And because of all of that, you are really just holding on to straws. And those straws are obviously by their nature unreliable. Clinging on to things, not understanding that all of this is very dangerous, uncertain, unreliable, and is going to let you down just around the corner. You can see it's kind of nicely set out, how this whole thing works. You're feeling a pain because that's the nature of the world. You go to the sensual pleasures, you go to something else that is unreliable, you hold on to that. When he does not understand these things, the underlying tendency to ignorance in regard to neither painful nor pleasant feelings lies behind this. So you are basically ignorant. And that ignorance is an ignorance that it also relates to the neither painful nor pleasant feelings. In the Buddhism, these are the most superior kinds of feelings. These are the ones you really want, neither painful nor pleasant. It goes beyond the aversion and beyond the sensual pleasures to something neutral. And in the Dhamma, part of this feeling of neither painful nor pleasant feelings comes from sense restraint. So you restrain your senses, and that is kind of the primary or the initial idea of adukkama sukha vedana, the feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. But in the highest sense, they are the really high neutral feelings that come all the way from the really deep states of samadhi is the highest ones. But we don't understand the beauty of neutrality. We don't understand the beauty of a mind that is kind of plain. We are always seeking towards those happy, pleasant feelings without really understanding the higher kind of pleasure. And so this is the problem with delusion. Avidya is the underlying problem here. Not having the full insight, not understanding what feelings are really worthwhile looking for and searching for. This is what is going on here. So this is what happens to the uninstructed worldling, the ordinary person. All of these underlying tendencies emerge out of the worldling. And so our job then becomes to give up these underlying tendencies because they lead us astray every time. We don't see the dangers, nor do we understand what is truly worthwhile pursuing, which here would be the neither painful nor pleasant feelings. If he feels a pleasant feeling, he feels it attached. If he feels a painful feeling, he feels it attached. If he feels a neither painful nor pleasant feelings, he feels it attached. The pleasant feeling, you feel it attached because you think, yay, pleasant feeling, it's mine. I want to hold on to this. If you feel a painful feeling, you are attached because you don't want it. Go away. I don't want to have anything to do with you. And the neither painful nor pleasant feeling, you just don't understand what it is, and you are attached to it because, in this case, again, you are not interested. If you are a worldling, but you are interested, if you're an Aryan, you are attached to it in the sense that you're not interested in it, you want to give it up. This bhikkhu is called an uninstructed worldling who is attached to birth, old age, and death, who is attached to sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair, who is attached to suffering, I say. This is the weird thing in life. We are attached to suffering. We think we are attached to happiness. We think we're attached to things in the world that will give us all the good things. But actually, we don't understand that what we are attached to is problematic. It leads us down the garden path. It leads us towards more suffering than actually towards happiness. It's a weird thing, isn't it? Why are you attached to suffering? Because you think it is happiness. There is a certain gratification there. There is a certain happiness to be had in these things. But it's only a small happiness, and the danger, the problem is far greater. And this is the issue. This is the problem that we are dealing with here. As you're dealing with a kind of profound problem, you need to change our attitude, look at things in a new way, see the dangers and move towards something else. Don't be attached to suffering. That's what the Buddha is saying. It is a bad idea. Yeah, attached to suffering doesn't make much sense, and yet that's exactly what is going on. You have to be like a Buddha or an Aryan to see this. All right. Because when the instructed noble disciple is contacted by a painful feeling, they do not sorrow, grieve, lament. He does not weep, beating their breast, or become distraught. They feel one feeling, a bodily one, not a mental one. The noble disciple knows that painful feelings are part of life. They know you can't do anything about it very often. You just have to accept it. It arises because of cause and conditions, not because you can control it or not control it. And so you feel that feeling, but you don't kind of make it worse by having aversion or negativity towards it. This is the idea. In the sight, let there just be the sight. In the bodily feeling, let there just be the bodily feeling. Don't add anything to it. Don't make it worse than it already is. Suppose they were to strike a man with a dart, but they would not strike him immediately afterwards with a second dart, so that the man would feel a feeling caused by one dart only. So one dart is enough. Yeah? One dart is enough? Yeah, sure. What is interesting, of course, is that there still is one dart. That is kind of what is interesting as well, right? There still is a dart there, but there's only one dart. And so the point is that even if you are an Aryan, even if you're an Arahant, you still get that dart. So if you think that I'll become an Arahant and I will have no suffering, bad news, yeah? Still have some suffering here. Physical suffering, it's unavoidable. An Arahant still feels pain. Yeah, if you hurt yourself, you're going to feel that pain. But you don't make anything out of it. And so, to a very large extent, the suffering is gone. There's only a tiny bit of suffering left. And that is the immediate physical suffering that you have. So you don't make anything out of it. But there's still some degree of suffering there. This is unavoidable. But the mental suffering is gone. So a lot of the suffering that people have is also the suffering that comes from sorrowing over losing things, losing your relatives, losing your possessions or whatever. And that kind of sorrow, of course, the Arahant doesn't have anymore. So all the big sufferings in life are basically gone. And all you have is the feelings. You accept them as they are. The body is like this. It is unavoidable when you have a human body. You will have to experience some of these things. So too, when the instructed noble disciple is contacted by a painful feelings, he feels, or they feel one feeling, a bodily one, not a mental one. Being contacted by that same painful feeling, he harbors no aversion towards it. Since he harbors no aversion towards painful feelings, the underlying tendency to aversion towards painful feelings does not lie behind this. You have no underlying tendency to aversion towards painful feelings. You don't believe that you can control the world. You know you can't control things. You know that the nature of the world depends on everything is just causes and conditions. Don't we know that already? Do you know that everything is cause and conditions? But if you know, you shouldn't be having this underlying tendency. You should be okay. So you know it, but you don't know it. You know what I mean? The thing is that knowledge comes in various degrees, and so yes, you know, but the deep knowing is very different. The knowing that is insight is a knowing that actually destroys those underlying tendencies. But the superficial knowing is, okay, you agree that this makes sense or whatever, but you haven't really seen it deeply, and so it doesn't affect the defilements in your mind. So when you see deeply that everything is cause and conditions, what that means is that the sense of self is gone. The sense of self is a sense of something that stands apart from cause and conditions. Is something that has an inherent existence apart from these things. And if something has an inherent existence apart from cause and conditions, then it feels like that thing can be in control. Because it stands outside of cause and conditions. If the sense of self is a permanent thing inside of you, then by definition it stands apart from cause and conditions. Otherwise it would change according to cause and conditions. But once you see that everything is just floating all the time, you realize there's nothing in you that stands apart. Everything is subject to those cause and conditions. What you are is a phenomenon that itself depends on cause and conditions. And so when a painful feeling arises, you know that it has to be that way. There cannot be any other way. There has to be just things arising and coming, passing away. And so you bear it. What's the point of complaining? You can't do anything anyway. The reason why we have aversion is because we think that we can do something. The reason why you get angry with somebody else. Why do you get angry? Why do you get upset with somebody if they call you something bad, a bad name or whatever? The reason you get upset, one of the reasons, is because you feel that it's in your power to do something about that. So you get angry and you think of ways to get around it. Maybe you have to get your own back, because if you get your own back, then they will be nice in the future, because I know that, that's bad. Or maybe you think, how can I, whatever it is that you do, or if I shout at them, they will understand this is serious, or whatever. So the ill will is a way of thinking that we are in control of things, that we can do something. So ill will arises, and then we find a way around the problem. But when you understand that there is no way around the problem, when you understand that everything is just cause and conditions, that there is no self apart from that, then you accept it, because it is the way it is. So you see other people as this phenomena called 5 khandas, Panchupadana Khanda, all this Panchupadana Khanda walking around in the world, deluded Panchupadana Khanda, not just arahant Panchupadana Khanda, but deluded ones, Putujana Panchupadana Khanda. And because that is what you see here, you realize that these two are just part of the network of cause and conditions that arise in the world, come and pass away. So you look at another person and you think, oh, conditioned phenomenon. It's profound, but that's kind of what it means. And so you see people in that way, and then you have compassion for them, because conditioned phenomena suffer. They're suffering in them, because they too have been conditioned into this in a certain way. And so instead of having aversion and getting angry and all of these kind of things towards painful feeling, all of that is taken away, because you don't have any sense of self anymore. The sense of self is gone. Everything just arises and comes and goes in the world without anyone being to blame. Isn't that great? No one is to blame. We blame ourselves or we blame others in the world. It's the politician's fault. It's whoever's fault. It's Ajahn Brahmali's fault. He gives the wrong kind of suttas. I didn't come here to hear these suttas. I wanted to hear other ones. It's someone else's fault. But I too am just this conditioned phenomenon. I fly in from Perth, flying in on conditioned phenomena, flying in from overseas. And then I do my conditioned thing, and you do your conditioned thing, and conditions meet conditions. Who is to blame? No one is to blame. So this is the idea here, the idea of conditioned phenomena in the world. It's a different way of seeing everything, and you kind of look upon the world in a new way, and then these underlying tendencies, they start to come to an end. Being contacted by painful feeling, they do not seek delight in sensual pleasures, because sensual pleasures are uncertain. Why do you seek delight there? Sensual pleasures, they lead to all this activity, because sensual pleasures have to be sought after. You have to work hard to get the sensual pleasures in the world, get a nice apartment, a nice car, all the things that you need. It takes a lot of work. And then you have to have all of this activity. But the Aryans know that all this activity is not going to give you happiness. On the contrary, it is the stilling of activities that give you happiness. You don't get happiness by seeking for sensual pleasures. You get the happiness by closing your eyes and watching your breath and going into samadhi. It's the opposite of seeking in the world. It's the giving up of the seeking in the world, the giving up of the doer inside, trying to acquire sensual happiness. The opposite of doing, that's where happiness is to be found. Sensual pleasures always have to do with activity and doing. It's always about seeking, always about craving, it's always about moving on somewhere else. Sensual pleasures, by their very definition, lead to activity. That activity is painful, that activity is part of the problem. And you know that when you're an Aryan, so you never seek for these things. One of the things about meditation practice is that it is about stilling the mind. Why can't you still the mind? And one of the reasons is because you're still interested in the sensual world. The sensual world, by its very nature, is full of restlessness and craving and desire and agitation. It's about movement, because you want to move towards something. Sensual pleasures are always in the future. And so it's driven, the search for sensual pleasure drives the sense of self into doing things. And so one of the reasons you can't be peaceful is because of that attachment to sensual pleasures. That's why reducing your attachment to sensual pleasures leads to more peace, leads you to be able to let go. You don't look for happiness in that world anymore. You don't seek delight in sensual pleasures. For what reason? Because the instructed noble disciples knows of an escape from painful feeling other than sensual pleasures. What is that escape? It's samadhi. It's a much deeper escape, more profound, much more happy escape, much more real escape, much more secure escape. Especially if you have that ability to enter samadhi at will, it means you have an escape always available to you. Since he does not seek delight in sensual pleasures, the underlying tendency to desire for pleasant feelings does not lie behind this. You don't have that underlying tendency anymore, because you know that that is the wrong place to look for happiness, and so that whole underlying tendency is uprooted and never to be found again. He understands as it really is, the origin, the passing away, the gratification, the danger, and the escape in the case of these feelings. Since he understands these things, the underlying tendency to ignorance in regard to neither painful nor pleasant feelings does not lie behind this. You understand the danger of all of these feelings, the happy feelings, the underlying tendencies, all of that. And because you understand that actually it is neither painful nor pleasant feelings that are the best. Ignorance in regard to those feelings has been abandoned. Now you want those neither painful nor pleasant feeling instead of wanting all these other things, because these are far superior feelings. And that's kind of weird. What do you mean neither painful nor pleasant feeling is superior to pleasant feeling? Most people, this is like a mystery, because neither painful nor pleasant, that just sounds grey. It sounds boring. It sounds utterly uninteresting. I want happiness. I don't want this neither one nor the other. Actually, I'd rather have pain than having nothing like that, than nothing at all. Give me pain any time, You know, there's a famous experiment about that, which you may have heard about. There was an experiment about someone, I think this was done in the US. All of these experiments are done in the US. And so then we can laugh at the Americans afterwards. And, and this was these people, they were put into a room. And there was like a large number of people who volunteered for these kind of experiments. And in that room there was nothing. There was like nothing there. There was nothing to do. It was just 4 walls, the ceiling and the floor. Nothing, except for one thing. There was a device on the wall where you could give yourself an electric shock. You know that one? And it was quite a strong shock apparently. Not so strong you would die, of course, but enough that you get a jolt, right? And so these people were supposed to be in that room for 15 minutes. 15, very short period of time. And many of them were not able to do that. So they went over to this machine to get electric shocks rather than just sitting in the room and doing nothing. Why? Because neither painful nor pleasant feeling is so unbearable to the majority of people. They need some kind of stimulus. They need to feel alive in a certain way. They can't deal with the complete silence and complete nothing. And apparently there were some people who gave themselves a lot of electric shocks, like 100 electric shocks within 15 minutes. It's like all the time, because for them it was just completely unbearable to be in this kind of situation. And this is a bit what it is like to be a human being. We don't understand what peace is one of the most powerful and beautiful of experiences. And this is what this path gradually shows us. Even the highest happiness you can imagine is not as happy as the beauty of peace when it is very, very profound. And so you go beyond happy feelings, you go beyond painful feelings, and you go to the neither painful nor pleasant. And that's where you find the highest kind of meaning. And this is what this is about. And this is, you can start to understand the escape from samsaric existence when you start to understand this. Because once you understand that neither painful nor pleasant feelings is the highest, the going from there to the ending of everything is not that far. You don't feel anything anyway, or it's almost like neutral. It's like neither happy nor painful. You might as well not exist. I might as well not exist. Then the penny drops. Cessation, ending of everything is even superior. If he feels a pleasant feeling, he feels it detached. If he feels a painful feeling, he feels it detached. If he feels a neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he feels it detached. He just observes these things. There's no underlying tendency that causes you to grasp or reject or anything like that. You're just cool. You see the feelings. But the feelings are like an alien thing to you. It's got nothing to do with you. It's just nature arising. Nature coming and going. This bhikkhu is called the noble disciple who is detached from birth, old age and death, who is detached from sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair, who is detached from suffering, I say. You are detached, you still experience these things, but you no longer hold on to suffering, you no longer desire suffering, you've given all of that up. This bhikkhu is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the instructed noble disciple and the uninstructed worldling. So, there you are, profound but beautiful sutta on the various kinds of feeling. And you can see here how we are now really coming towards the end of the path. We're looking at things from a very different angle from what you are used to. And you are detached from suffering. And because you are detached from suffering, you are no longer perpetuating it and creating more of it in the future. Okay, let's have another break.
Ajahn, I'm not sure whether I read the implication of this sutta correctly, because it says that most people, the worldlings does not know the escape other than seeking sensual pleasure. So, does that mean that this sutta, is implying that as long as you do not have access to higher pleasure, like I suppose it's talking about jhana, because it's a vijay kami is the secluded, the pleasure that's secluded from sensual pleasure is usually what they refer as jhana. And if as long as you do not have access to jhana, then you will be affected by this painful or pleasure feeling, because there's no escape for you other than seeking all this pleasure, sensual pleasure, because you do not have access to higher.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. It's a little bit unusual, because it talks about the noble ones. It doesn't talk about the jhanas. It talks about the noble ones. But the noble ones in general will have access to jhanas and samadhi. And so that's I think that's what is probably meant here. Yeah, most likely. So for non-noble ones, the jhanas, samadhi is always going to be a bit dicey. But for the noble ones, it's always accessible. That's one of the qualities of the noble ones. You find that in the Kosambhya Sutta, that the noble ones, they say, if I develop this view and I sustain this view that I have achieved, then my mind will become peaceful and calm. And basically, samatha practice, samadhi practice, and that is the natural inclination of the mind of the Aryans, but not for Putthujanas. It's much more unreliable and uncertain. Yeah.
Ajahn, now we understand.
Yeah.
If we look at our white hair, we have unpleasant feeling.
Yeah.
So why should we attach to the unpleasant feeling of the white hair? Just see as it is, right?
Yeah.
So the suffering is self-inflicted.
Self-inflicted, right? Yes. Yeah.
So if we attach to suffering, we attach to old age.
Yeah.
We'll come back again.
No, exactly. So that's the attitude. If you are on the path, is that you see some of these problems and you deal with them instead of actually just allowing that pain to persist. So absolutely, yeah. So good. Well done, Xioling. You are on the right track. Yeah.
Ajahn, if I'm not mistaken, basically, one who has clear comprehension, this body is not me, will have the ability to feel that even I have a physical pain, this is not my pain.
Right. Yeah.
So it's really a person who has attained Sotapanna can already experience this. It doesn't have to be an Arahant who is able to say, I was only struck by one arrow.
Yeah.
Even a Sotapanna who has already achieved a certain level of detachment of the body can already practice this easily and say, there was only one arrow.
Yeah, so that's what it says. It talks about the noble person, so it seems to be implying the stream enters. But I think the difference is that the Arahant will always do it, whereas the stream enter will have to reflect a bit more and try a bit harder.
Because mana is still there.
Mana is still there. There's a certain degree of self-concern, conceit, exactly. Yeah.
But part of this is, if I feel that part of this is also has to do with cultivation of sampajana, the clear comprehension that the body is hurt, the mind does not need to be disturbed.
Yeah, so I think that's true, and I think that if you develop the mind highly, we're talking about the samadhi before, actually will already be very helpful, because one of the things that you do when you develop the mind is that you have that kind of inner refuge in the inside of yourself. Part of that gives rise to the wisdom, to sampajana and sampajanya, because you know that there is an alternative, and that knowledge that there is an alternative gives you a stability and strength inside. But I think it's very helpful to see deep samadhi, not just sampajanya, but to having seen some alternatives, because then you know that the alternatives exist in a very clear way. It's no longer uncertain for you or diffuse to you. It's actually very clear. But any kind of mindfulness, any kind of stability of the mind will certainly be helpful. Yeah.